in just a moment. Hey everyone, our Shawn McBride joining you with another edition of Best in Events. My regular co-host Deirdra Watson will be joining in a minute. We have Shawna Suckow joining us. We thought she'd be a perfect guest to help us tune in into the future of events because she's been on both sides of the table. She's planned events and meetings, and then she's also been a speaker out there in the world, and she's very well connected in the world. For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet Shawna yet, you'll have to go check out all our awesome work. Let me pass it to you first, Shawna. We usually like to give our guests just a minute to say hi, introduce yourself, kind of give people a feel for who you are and what you've done, and then we'll start grilling you with the hard questions about the future of the meeting industry after that.
Okay, just in summary, I was a corporate and incentive planner for 20 years, and I've been a speaker professionally full-time for 8 years now. And I still, in 2008, I founded an association that a couple of the ladies that I've seen so far on are members of, I know. It's called SPIN, the Senior Planners Industry Network. And it is a free network for any planners with 10 years of experience or more. And man, our discussion boards are going crazy right now with all this, all this craziness in the world. So it's been a pleasure to be part of that and just kind of stay abreast of what all is going on in people's worlds. So now I spend my days, let's see, what do? I walk my dog for like a half an hour, maybe an hour a day if he's lucky. And then I fill my day with other things. That's about it.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, for those of us without speaking, there's just not a lot of speaking right now, right?
No.
Nobody wants to get on a plane. Nobody's going anywhere. Yeah. Some conferences have attempted to go virtual, but I wouldn't put that as the majority. I'd put that as the minority, right?
Yeah, I've been doing a few virtual things here and there. Yesterday was very cool. So every year for a number of years, I've been going down to Brazil for this event called Forum Eventos, the events forum. And that obviously has been canceled or postponed rather. But yesterday was their National Meetings Industry Day. And so I got to present virtually in Brazil, and I got to see live simultaneous translation on Zoom for the first time, which was really interesting. And it wasn't without its glitches, as with everything we're kind of doing virtually these days, but it was really cool to be able to present in English and, people speaking only Portuguese. And, we've seen that live, and I've done that live, but it was just really cool. And to know that we have friends around the world that are really part of this global challenge. And I hate the trite saying, we're all in this together, but yes. It's kind of how I felt last night. And so that was good. But yeah, other than that, live events ground to a halt there as well as here. So
right. And of course, everybody's trying to figure out when, right? So in the taping Deirdra and I did yesterday, our guest was saying that, probably some of the big events are now starting to pull the plug for August. I heard a large event pulled the plug for November. So, 2020 is starting to look like it's going to dry up for at least all the large events. Yeah. What are you seeing? I mean, when do you, just in your talks and your chats and talking to conferences, when do you think we might start seeing some life in live events again?
Well, I think large events are kind of doomed for the time being because they're going to have the hardest time figuring out how to socially distance people. It's really hard when you are expecting to have a ballroom crammed with 3,000 to 5,000 people and you're taking up all the space. You can't socially distance people. Not that all 3,000 to 5,000 will attend anymore to begin with, but I really think smaller events are going to come back first. And we have to do an amazing job of reassuring the public about our safety measures that we have taken at the event. And I think airlines are doing an amazing job, for the most part, with some exceptions, of assuring the public and distancing passengers. And they're going to start requiring face masks, which why you'd get on a plane without one right now is beyond me. But so airlines are doing a good job. Hotels, when they reopen, everybody's newly fumigating and sanitizing, which is reassuring. So I think small events with travelers who are used to traveling will happen first. And then events with the regular kind of Joe traveler who doesn't travel very often, they're going to be scared. And so those are going to maybe take a little bit longer. And then large events are going to be the last to come back, sadly.
Yeah. And we were talking, the large events, they're now having trouble moving into 21 and 22 because they're bumping up against other large events that are trying
that haven't moved yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Ones haven't moved and other people are starting to move and everybody's trying to move into the same space basically.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
It's going to be a challenge.
We have that concern. And meanwhile, hotels are closed or sitting vacant now, which is sad for our community.
Yes, definitely. And one thing we've also talked a lot about is kind of the working with the hotels. And when we start thinking about that, it's going to be challenging because it's just a different economic model, right? Everybody's got to be spaced out. Can't get as many attendees in there. I hear some hotels are now using like every other room and letting some rooms sit for a day or two before they book new guests in there. So it just massively changes the capacity.
And Las Vegas, which is kind of the icon for all things meetings, especially large meetings, they're going to really struggle to reopen. And I'm kind of watching discussions about that. But the last thing I want to do right now is go gamble and touch a bunch of chips and cards and
yes.
people that have been eating and drinking. And, so they're going to have an uphill climb. And they're the hardest model, I think, for reopening. And their mayor seems to want to do it tomorrow. So it'll just be really interesting to watch. And I know we as an industry are putting together task forces to kind of look at every element of meetings and rethink what those are going to look like.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting. And what better minds than the ones in our industry to get really creative and just unleash those ideas and have backing finally from the C-suite to try new things, because
that probably is the one blessing in all this, right? Is now there is kind of this thing of go out and try it. I mean, virtual is being tried, hybrid events are being tried on a large scale. So I think we'll have some innovations and learning from that.
And definitely new technology, all sorts of new things will emerge from this, as they do from each period of struggle. They always say necessity is the mother of invention. So we can expect a lot of cool technology, I think, to come out of this that we can't even foresee right now. During the Great Recession is when we saw the iPad with somebody's face, and it's just on a stick and wheels, and you can remote control around a trade show. Deirdra, you've seen that, like Jim Spellos has been on one, and that came out of the last recession because people couldn't attend in person. And so maybe we'll see a lot of, robot sticks, virtual avatars walking around. I don't know, but it's going to be cool to watch. It's a sad time to have to rethink everything, but you're right, Shawn. If one good thing comes out of this, it's, everything's going to look different, and it'll be new and to some degree exciting.
Yeah.
So as a speaker, Shawna, what are you seeing right now because of COVID and because of the move to virtual events? Like you said, you just did one in Brazil, and what did you think of the process that they provided you at your end? What was that process like? And how did the event planner on the other side help you? And yes, you're a seasoned event planner as well, but this is kind of like new territory for those of us that haven't done virtual.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The process was a little sticky. I could tell it was their first time doing a Zoom thing of that size, and it should have been a webinar rather than a meeting. And the difference is, for a lot of people who are still learning this, a webinar means all the participants aren't on video or their names aren't showing like this.
Yeah.
This is cool. This is a smaller, this can be a meeting and we can have a conversation later because of the number of us, but a webinar, so they had hundreds of people, kind of moving around and you could see their faces and stuff. And they should have been participants who could do things interactively. They didn't know how to do like a poll or anything like that. And they had the waiting room feature turned on, which means every time somebody joined, it would flash on the screen, Julie is in the waiting room. And they didn't know how to let them in. So I, as the speaker, was busy clicking and letting people in. So,
oh my goodness.
And I'm totally zen about that kind of stuff because we're all learning. But they're having another speaker next week. And so I think we're all going to continue to evolve through those kinks. But the good news is everybody is pretty zen right now about glitches and about being informal and having a more casual approach. And we don't have to be dressed to the nines. And, we're all collectively figuring this out. And so just specifically to the process, Deirdra, they struggled, but I didn't mind because, they're probably using it for the first time. And I don't know how prevalent Zoom has been in Brazil in the first place. So kudos to them.
Well, yeah, I heard Zoom overall. I mean, one article I read was they 20x their user base, since this started, right? So the number of people using Zoom has increased exponentially. I know I've talked to a lot of people. I use Zoom regularly. I use it as a meeting tool in my business, and a lot of people weren't familiar with Zoom. Now almost everybody's been on Zoom before, right? Oh yeah, I've been on Zoom before.
Today is my mom's 76th birthday, and my dad, who's 78, arranged without consulting me, and I'm pretty techie, arranged on his own this Zoom surprise party for my mom tonight. And it was so cute. And he did that. And so, if a 78-year-old man can figure this out, who's not techie, then there's hope for all of us to really muddle through. But there's going to be trial and error with any new tool that we use. And thankfully, people are being pretty patient right now, I think, as a rule. Nobody's being too,
yeah. I haven't seen much of that at all. Everybody's been, and Mary typed in our chat boxes. We're talking live here that she saw an application called Event Farm where they have a virtual meetings and campus for a conference campus. And so I think there's going to be a lot of testing, right? Everybody knows we're in a testing phase. A lot of the stuff's been out there. It's just nobody's really been using it mainstream.
Yeah, we've not needed to, and so we really haven't. I remember, I think it was after 9/11. When virtual meetings first appeared and very first virtual expo halls. Do you remember those? And they were so wonky, like looking at an old video game with horrible pixelated images, and we thought those were so cool. I can't even imagine, like my son plays video games now that you can't tell those aren't real people. It's creepy.
Yeah.
So, the technology that will come out of this, where we can maybe meet practically face-to-face and look like we look, only much better, if you know what I mean. That's going to be cool.
Get some filters.
We're always like the perfect size and the perfect makeup and the perfect hair, and I could dig that actually.
I tell you, this may be a trend. Everybody might get into this. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I popped on TV the other day. There was a NASCAR race, and I showed it to my mother, and she's like, where are they racing at? And I'm like, that's people in their playing the video game, and they're broadcasting it on national TV.
Yeah. And probably betting on it, and but it looks so real. So that's, finally, as with post 9/11, those guys have interest and money coming in to develop those technologies. And so we're going to see a resurgence of that. And will it last this time? Because it didn't last time. Once we got back to live expo halls, we dumped the clunky stuff.
Yeah.
But the cooler it is, it may stick around this time. And I think
there's a real chance, right, to test.
Yeah. Well, and the hybrid meeting itself, I think, is going to stick around for years because after 9/11, I remember people being terrified to travel.
Yeah, to fly, even get on a plane.
Yeah, and it was against this unknown entity. We didn't, and then a lot of things changed after that with our security and our processes for boarding planes. This will be no different. People are going to be terrified to travel until.
Yeah.
And so I think part of our job as speakers and planners is to continuously reassure when the time is right by sharing with them how we're evolving, how we're changing things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, what are you thinking, just very early stage, obviously, as far as this communication process? What's appropriate? I mean, if somebody wants to start going back to a small live event, say, end of summer or fall, what would you be communicating with your attendees?
I just had this conversation this morning because Spin has our annual conference in the winter. It's in December this year in Miami. And I feel pretty confident that we can move forward with significant changes to how we do things. And thankfully, Spin has always kind of been that kind of testing ground for new things. And we have a really tolerant group of planners who don't judge us when we fail, as long as we try. And so we're going to be trying, we're going to be like a showcase of how to do things. But Catherine, who does the marketing and puts together the website for it, she's like, I have time right now to be working on the website, but is it appropriate to put it out? And what do we even say? And, I said, we need to give people hope that it's happening. I'm hopeful that it's happening, but also we can't focus on the fun. Like usually we'd be like, this meeting is so much fun and you're going to learn stuff. But now, of course, the fun can be implied, but it can't be the main focus. We have to really focus on how we're going to serve them, because it's hard to justify spending money and taking a risk with your travel and your health for fun right now. But I think people come if we can show them a way out. We can show them a way out of how things used to be done and a way toward the way things could be done in the future, and a safe gathering place for us after a long drought of human connection. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And the fact that we are going to be a testing ground for a lot of new things. I was just talking to the folks in Brazil yesterday about, they were very curious. They're behind us, I would say about a month, where those of us on this call, we've gone through a really intense month of financial panic, grocery insecurity for some of us. I was telling them, Brazilians eat a lot of chicken. And I said, I could not find chicken at the grocery store. It could not be, and we're having everything delivered as they are. And they flipped out. No chicken, but that's kind of like, we're like, okay, well, we've been adapting for a month. There's none of this. We'll have to do this. And they're just entering that phase. And so they were fascinated when I was talking about what food service at meetings might look like and how we might reassure participants about the most mundane thing, which is food.
Yes.
And I was talking about how buffets are going to have to go away, and
Yeah.
buffets going away. And I said, well, in the way that we think of them, people I think can still go up to a buffet. Everything's going to have to be covered with plexiglass, and you can look, and there's going to have to be the lunch lady on the other side,
Yes.
who can,
Keep it sanitary and then hand you the
dish
plate.
it up, hand
Right.
our plate down the line to the next lunch lady who has gloves on and a mask, and we point to what we want, and we get our plate at the end. There's no more past water pitchers. There's no more past coffee pitchers. That's all going to have to be butler, passed, or server provided. No more shared salad dressings for the long haul. Maybe permanently, I don't know. I told them we're talking about no more handshaking or hugging at events. All those things, and having, hand sanitizer as the new water station now. But, hand sanitizer is going to have to be touched for, like you see in airports. It's all these little things that we're going to have to think about ourselves and then communicate to our attendees. We're even thinking about never serving you a plated meal without a cover on it. going forward, because
Wow.
that's even, those are the types of things, even those little things mean a lot to somebody who's very nervous about coming.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we talked about in one of these programs was the networking aspect. And it was brought up that they were talking with a venue about that and using plexiglass for networking, and all I could envision was like the prison waiting room when you're talking with the
Your
prisoner.
hands, I'd be like this.
Exactly.
I miss you.
They wanted to put Well, they said they wanted to put plexiglass between attendees, and we're like, I don't understand how that works.
That's weird.
Yeah, because
I would feel claustrophobic if I were sitting in a box, even if it was clear.
And then the sanitation issue I brought up was, well, even if you had these nice little plexiglass booths where you could sit across from somebody, as soon as you leave the booth, it needs to be sanitized, right? I mean,
exactly. The thing is, I think we're really only looking at solving a lot of these major problems for the next year and a half, until there is a vaccine, until it's proven that it works, until, most of us have immunity and like an immunity passport or whatever is going to come out of this. And then, I think we can hug again, and maybe I hope
it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's just going to be one of the things I toss around in my head and that we talk about here is just how much do habits change, right? Everybody's been forced to take on new habits here for several weeks now, starting to feel like forever. And and it'll be a couple more months at least before we start seeing small events. And then we'll start seeing small events, and the elbow bump. The last conference I was at, right when this thing was starting to hit, the last live event I spoke at, everybody was starting to move to the elbow bump.
Yes.
And it was getting towards the end of the weekend. It was getting normal.
But then I heard the elbow bump will go away because we all are being told to sneeze into our elbows.
Well, yes.
So here you go.
It's definitely a step better than the handshake.
It definitely is, but I think
you're usually not touching your elbow, then your face. But yes.
Well, most people can't touch their elbow to their nose.
Yeah.
Remember that old trick?
Yeah.
But so those things, we fundamentally changed after 9/11.
Yep. There's probably some fundamental changes here. We just don't know how deep they're going to be, right?
Yes, and that to me, if we didn't have the financial woes and the frightening health concerns, it would be a really exciting time for evolution in our industry.
Yes.
So if we can just look at it through rose-colored glasses, which I tend to look at everything when I'm not deeply depressed, and just look at what a cool thing this could be in the future for our industry and for meetings, and how that evolution is going to fundamentally change us. And we're right in the middle of it right now. And we have idea.
Yeah.
We have no
and
idea.
And it's a true realization of everyone's life and well-being. We got so taken, we've been so driven by our technology, by everything that we've done, but this gives us a reason to pause and a reason to look towards a different future, but also how do we enhance the viability of events?
Yes. And Mary has a great point that there's a great argument for hybrid meetings. She says, for inclusivity purposes, how many people have we not reached just because they can't travel? My friend's dad, for example, is on dialysis. He really would have a hard time going anywhere for a period of time without a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But now the world is opening up to him, and there are people in places all over the world who are saying, since you can't travel here, we're going to bring the beach to you. Here's a video, a live feed of Miami Beach right now. Or here's a chef in Argentina showing how to cook something, really cool. And so it's kind of a cool time for people who have not had that opportunity. And going forward, you're right, Mary, this is a great opportunity for us to include more people than can physically travel, whether it's physical limitations, it's financial limitations, whatever the reason may be, they're sick at home and they really wanted to participate. All those things, we can have larger audiences. The challenge right now is webinar fatigue
Yeah.
is just starting to set in.
Mhm.
And I commend those of you who joined live, because the content can be really compelling, but just getting somebody now to do anything when we're at home, we're not in a routine, a lot of us, anything that has a time attached to it, we're like, oh, really? I have to do that?
You mean I have to get out of bed today?
I have to do the thing at 2 o'clock. I'm really busy with nothing, and so we have to make our content really compelling.
Yeah.
And we have to tolerate the fact that most people will not watch it live, which is disappointing for live event experts. We have to tolerate that, and we have to embrace that, and offer them different ways to engage. I talked about, I was part of an event hackathon that Socio put on a few weeks ago, and I talked about lengthening the engagement bell curve. And live event experts, including speakers, we are so used to, we go to the event, we engage, we go home, and then it stops.
Yep.
And we as an industry have been talking for at least 10 years that I can recall about, we need to engage people before, during, and after the meeting, but we haven't been forced to.
Yes.
Right.
Now, we can embrace the fact that people aren't going to engage this day at this time. Let's lengthen that engagement bell curve. Let's offer them more opportunities. Why not create a Facebook group around an event and really encourage people to have professional speakers pop in before the actual event, give content, have a chef come in. Hey, we're not going to be eating together at the meeting, but if we were, here's what I would serve you. I'm going to show you how to make it. So maybe during the meeting, you can have this prepared and we can still have virtual dinner together, and have those things that will compel people at their own schedule to engage, to converse, because I think forcing people to do things on our schedule right now is, it's our desire. It's not theirs.
Right.
I think there is a beauty too in building community, right? That's one of the main things you do at a conference or an event, and build a community, and hopefully you have this community comes back again and again. But what happens so often in a live event is you don't know people. I know as a speaker, people don't know who I am. I'm wandering around. I'm introducing myself to people usually before I speak. Then I go on stage, and then everybody's like, "Oh, now I know how we can connect," right? Because it's hard to do it one-on-one, and then once you speak, then people know what you do, and they know how it's relevant to their world. They bring you their questions, and that is a beautiful opportunity for an event to do it the right way. If you could get everybody engaging over a longer period of time, knowing who each other are, it could make it a lot more relevant.
But using that post-promotion,
Yeah, and post-promotion too. Keep it going afterward. Lengthen that event so it's not just 2 days, it's 2 months. Or maybe it turns into a beautiful year-round thing that people find extremely valuable. And that would be, I think, the dream of every event planner, because you then have your audience and your ambassadors built in for the next time. They're already there. They're with you along the way. Like the spin board has never been this engaged. And we're drawing in new people into the conversation that want to be part of this. And that makes it so much easier to announce when we do go back to our live meeting, we're going to have so many more people engaged and being like, that sounds like something I really want to do. I've really enjoyed this year-long conversation. I feel part of this. I'm not going to feel weird when I go. As Shawn says, I'm not going to feel like I don't know anybody. And so the whole engagement piece, we can work on so much, on doing such a better job now, which will only help feed our live events in the future when those return someday.
I think what we also have to be aware of is in regards to groups. I just looked on my phone of how many groups I'm part of, and I'm part of 112 different groups.
Not sustainable.
I don't pay attention to all of them.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, Zoom calls and webinars and everything else. I'm inundated with groups. And
everybody's doing a thing right now. Yep.
Exactly. So it's utilizing the time now to be involved with groups that are relevant to what you're doing. And I'm a big proponent of spin, as you know, and been a member for a long time. And it's one of those groups that really gives me what I need in the industry.
Yeah. And for those of you who aren't part of it, there are no dues or anything. We don't have skin in the game except for you all participating and engaging and improving our industry, and hopefully coming to the live event, which is dirt cheap anyway. So it's not, this isn't a pitch for that. I would love it if you did come and join the conversation. But what I want to ask you, Deirdra and Shawn, and everybody else in the call, type in the chat, how many, let's take Facebook, for example, how many groups can you and do you actively engage in on a regular basis during all this? So for me, I would say it's probably 4.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 to 4 is the number.
Yeah, I'm thinking, 3 to 4. There's some specific that are related to my goals, but I would probably say 3 to 4 on a weekly basis. Yeah.
And it's difficult to get each of us to engage in another group right now.
Yeah.
And so for that same reason, as event planners, when we try to create a new Facebook group and a new way to engage people that haven't been, it's not going to be a cakewalk and just be like, create it and they will come. In fact, the early days of Spin, nobody wanted to talk to each other. It was so weird. And so I remember appointing like volunteers. Would you go in and just ask a question or start a conversation and see if we can get people to respond? And so we're going to have to do that again and have that compelling content that gets people to at least go, okay, I have my 3 to 4 groups I'm loyal to with my time. I will give this one a chance because it's compelling enough. So we can't just build it and go, come on in, the water's fine. As all of us know, you're a member of 125 groups, Deirdra, but really, 3 or 4 or 5 make the cut. And others, it takes a lot for them to even get into your feed.
Well, and I was thinking even today of going through all my groups now that I have time.
Yeah, and editing.
And editing and getting rid of and leaving groups that I really don't feel meet my own personal goals or vision anymore.
Yeah, I was invited to a lot of Facebook groups early on in this kind of 6-week quarantine that are even event and hospitality related. And I don't have the bandwidth mentally right now to give my energy to all of those.
Yeah.
And combined with the fact that I feel I'm being well served in the groups that I am giving my time and energy to. So I know myself how difficult it would be for somebody to get me to engage in another group. It would have to be something compelling. So when we have our planner hats on and our speaker hats, if we work together to create that really cool, compelling reason to stick a toe in the water, I think we can be successful in getting them engaged early, which then means they are going to participate in your hybrid event, hopefully live, but maybe not, but they're still going to participate, and then keep it going afterward. And then, like I said, you have those built-in ambassadors for next time that will say, Judy just shared, it's been, about Spin. Judy's third-party endorsement of Spin means way more than mine as the founder. And so when we get those attendees to become ambassadors for what we created, it's far more compelling for others. Like if I had a friend like Deirdra, if you came to me or Shawn and you said, you have to check out this group, I would listen to you before I would listen to the organizer. So that's another tip is, when we are launching new virtual events and people are going through virtual fatigue, we have to enlist the help of third parties who don't have skin in the game that, are willing to help us spread the word
Yeah, and this isn't new, right? I mean, I've done the same
No,
thing for years with books, right? So
absolutely, Shawn.
got a great cover on your book, whatever. I'm walking right past it. But if somebody I'm talking to, I'm having a conversation with, they said, "Hey, I read this book, has
Yeah.
some compelling points, has a great way of organizing the information. Now I'm going to go buy that book."
Yes.
Again, same thing, marketing, right? I mean, yes, it's great to put your own message out there, but at some point you need other people to say, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is good, go check it out," right? So that speaks to the fundamental engagement you're talking about, Shawna, right? You build the group, but then you get people to really, really be pleased with the outcome. Then
Yes.
other friends.
And you have to show what's different about your group that's going to stand out from, the thousands of others that are out there. And it's not easy, as you know, Shawn, with marketing a book. It's very similar, marketing an event, and enlisting people who will help you get that groundswell around a virtual event is really going to be the challenge right now, because we're all being pulled in 62 virtual directions right now. Come and watch this and participate in that, and and how do we pick and choose? So I think the initial frenzy around let's create a webinar around that will die down, and what will stay is events and virtual sessions that really have value. But there's been a lot of let's just do it for the sake of doing it because we need to stay in touch.
Yeah, and there was and I think, and as I've watched my view numbers, I've got a couple of YouTube channels, Deirdra and I've been on this thing. There was really early on in this a big spike, right? Everybody was just like looking for stuff to watch, and sure,
Yeah.
we took advantage of the early ride with that.
Yeah, and we were bored, and
we were bored or looking around for things to do. Now you got to have compelling content, and that's what Deirdra and I are trying to build here is people coming here to learn about what the future of events are and what we're doing, and we plan to continue this over a long term. But you've got to make that part of your thinking, and if you're building an event, you've got to think about that. So let's flip this to the speaker side, because I think there is a chance to co-create, right, between the events and the speakers.
Yes.
More than ever, right? There's a chance to create some type of fusion between the experts, the authorities, and the event. And it may no longer be that 1 or 2 hour speech. It may look something different, right? It may be a different type of engagement. What are your thoughts on that?
I think for myself, I'm putting together a summit. Most of my clients are convention and visitor bureaus, and I help them to rethink how they market to tourists and to planners and so forth. And they are destitute right now. And so I'm putting together a summit to help them through this recovery stage that they're going to be facing, and what does that look like, and how do they get people interested in traveling again and even thinking about meetings. And one of the things that I'm doing is the speakers aren't going to speak for an hour, at most 40 minutes.
40 minutes, yeah.
40 minutes, and 30 is better. And mixing up the content, because at a typical meeting, we sit and we listen, and we can do that a little better because it's live and we've got breaks where we can go engage with people. When we're at home, that is really hard for us to tolerate, just watching and not engaging for an hour or 2 or 6 or 8 like the typical live meeting. And so I'm mixing and matching formats throughout the day, maximum 6 hours total for the day. And it's going to be a mixture of panels and interviews and like TED Talks.
Yeah.
And by doing that, and also putting in a little dance break or a yoga stretch or something like that every now and then to give people brain breaks. We've talked about this for live meetings for a really long time, but for virtual meetings, we have to work even harder because it is even harder to pay attention. And some of you on this call, how many of you have checked your email, or as much as you want to pay attention, it's really hard. And my dog's right over there, and cars are driving. We just have different distractions.
Yeah, it's a different setting.
Yeah.
I tend to get exhausted when I go to conferences for multiple days because you're in it every day. It starts early and it runs late, and but you're there, right? You've traveled. You can't go home. You can't engage with your dog. You can't do all your normal.
Yes.
You can't go for an hour walk with your dog.
Yes. Right.
One of the other things that I like about the conference is that you don't have on a virtual component is the fact when you're sitting in a conference space, you can actually talk to the person next to you.
Yep.
You know, and we're doing it in the chat, but you know, you can talk about the discussion at hand. So there is a little bit more of that, you know, that connection, that component that you don't have within that virtual realm.
Yeah, and those of you who are watching, any way you want this discussion to go, I'm sure Deirdra and Shawn would be happy to navigate this if you have questions. But I mean, I'm the classic.
Let me take that for a second, Shawna. So yeah, we're doing this on our Best in Events YouTube channel. So drop comments there. Those who are watching live that are seeing the feed, you know, comment, because you know, one of the interesting things too is we can tailor the content, right? So if people drop questions, they have an issue, they want a specific topic covered, they want us to go deeper with a guest, you know, we'll accommodate that. That's one of the nice things about the virtual.
Good point.
Versus the live event is we have already been listening to people, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Cleaning was a topic coming up. We had a cleaning expert come on, right? And you know,
I'm not that. I would have to defer. Not a cleaning expert.
But I mean, and we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen. But you know, you talked about making your clients or your attendees, you know, comfortable with the cleaning, right? That we think that's going to be a big issue going forward. And what does that look like? And what do you need to know as a meeting?
Oh, I thought you meant my house.
No, not cleaning your house. Your house looks lovely in the background, by the way.
This is, as you've seen probably on memes, this is my Zoom house. This is not my real, like the way things look, like that way and that way a couple feet. Yeah, no.
That's why I have my background.
That's so smart.
You did a great job framing it up. It's framed up perfect. But no, we were talking about cleaning conferences and events because of the theme that came up, and then we talked about it with our contract expert. You know, what do you do as far as putting in a contract about cleaning, you know, and then we haven't heard yet that a lot of people are doing that, but we expect that'll be a trend, right? You have to make sure that this is cleaned. You have to, you know, do the touch surfaces every 2 hours or whatever the standard might be.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, from your point, it's all about interaction, you know, and we can take interaction during or after now because of the unique format of doing stuff electronically and doing it on the internet. Is whether somebody comments now or they comment later, Deirdra and I can circle back to it and pick it up. And so I think people can try to challenge themselves. How can, like you talked about, it's a longer range conversation.
Right.
So.
Now, one of the things that we want to develop from all of these discussions too is best practices. You know, what was involved in the whole process that, you know, you discovered, and how we can make or give that information out to everybody as we're going, and of course when we're all back to what we all want to call the new normal.
Yeah, and the new normal is going to be different, right? And I think, I'm guessing Shawna is talking about it, and if we have it long enough, the habit's going to form that people are going to expect a longer engagement over a conference, not just I fly in for 3-4 days and then I fly out and I have a stack of business cards that I only respond to a third of the people from. Yeah, but
and a bunch of notes that you never reference again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. How many times? You know. I have no.
And that's the other thing is with virtual, we can have. You're at home. You can be doing the thing rather than writing notes about what you plan to do later. That can be an entire session. Is let's walk through this together. Everybody grab the event contract that I sent you, you know, so we can have really hands-on sessions that are a little bit more rare live, and do things like that from home that aren't as readily accessible, you know, when you travel to someplace.
Right, you can
because you can't print stuff off too, right? Unless you're going to a business center or your event planner has brought their printer with them, which is generally what I do. Is I bring my own printer.
Yeah. I've got my 3 computers sitting right here in my office off screens.
You seem
I
like
can,
a guy that would have 3 computers, Shawn.
I can
And
sit here and
that's a compliment.
talk to somebody on the Zoom computer. I can type over here and I can type over there, whatever it needs to be, right? But that does raise the point that's the flip side of it, right? It's harder to keep people engaged in one way, and that you can't just staring at the screen from home. But if you say, hey, go look this up and go to this web page and let's start filling out this form, or download this form and start working on it, work on this contract together, whatever, it's a different type of engagement. It's a challenge to figure out how to do that. It's new thinking, but it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and
exactly.
Shawna, as a speaker, and you've done the virtual, how do you keep participants engaged? Because even that interactive point is now different.
Yes, well, you have to incorporate, like, we've got some tools in Zoom that we can use, like everybody in the chat, tell me what you plan on doing an hour from now. Go ahead and chat in. What do you plan on doing an hour from now? I plan on taking off this fancy jacket. It's raining here. Oh, it stopped raining. That changes what I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm going to like tidy up the house. My husband is an essential worker. He's been working 11-hour days. I'm going to tidy up the house because it's the weekend. He needs to just have a place to kind of zone out, and kind of starting to think about planning to do yard work. That's as far as I've gotten. So grocery shopping, Deirdra, do you go to a store, or you're going to do it online?
We've got, we call it a superstore. It's about 15 minutes away. And once every 2 weeks, we'll do like a big shopping. So this is our big shopping week.
Yeah.
But this time, and we haven't been wearing masks, but this time I'll go into my first aid kit and I'll get masks out that we can wear our masks to the grocery store. And the lineups, some have been like 20 minutes, some have been longer.
We're exclusively ordering.
Yeah, and because we live in an area where like we've only got about 10,000 people in where we live, it's about 50,000 in the town that we go to. We can't necessarily get delivered for food.
Yeah.
So we have to go and get our own. But we try to make it like a one trip day out, which is what we did before COVID, because we work at home anyway.
And let's hear from Sharda and Judy and Melissa, if you want to weigh in, if you want to share. What are you doing an hour from now? And what I'm showcasing is kind of a palate cleansing question, where if we get too far along into one discussion, we all kind of, unless we're the speaker, I have to pay attention. My mind, just as a human being, would kind of wander a little bit. And so a palate cleansing question that's so off topic that it's okay in virtual. I wouldn't do this from a keynote stage.
No.
But for here, it's totally okay. You know, what I came up with, the idea during our talk here, thank you, Mary, for giving me the idea, is during my summit, I'm going to have a 5 or 10 minute break and have a puppy parade. Everybody get your dog or your cat or your ferret or whatever and bring them on stage with you.
Yeah.
It's a palate cleanser. It's going to revive everybody. And then you can get back to and go, okay, now let's get back to that accounting discussion we were having or whatever. I just did that for you, Shawn.
No, it's
like, you know, I saw your accountancy certificate in the background. And yes, beverages are good.
It's even boring for me. You know, I think that's an interesting idea too.
Oh, good, Sharda. I love that. Yeah.
So we're getting festive beverages. We are taping on a Friday afternoon, so that makes sense.
But time is irrelevant, don't you find? Days of the week, irrelevant. Time of day, irrelevant.
I got one of my friends, I text her every morning. I'm like, happy Thursday, happy Friday. And she's like, I wouldn't know what day of the week it is unless you texted me every day.
Yeah, there's just, somebody put a meme up that it's just today, tomorrow, and yesterday. What date it is. I only know it's May 1st because it's my mom's birthday. Other than that, irrelevant. We're living in dog years right now, where every day is like 7 years, or, you know, 7 days is like one day. There's no point of reference whatsoever.
I know, the flow is gone. And I think this is really true for us in the meeting worlds, whether we're speakers or event planners or whatever. Like, my world's built around like go, do, return, reset, get ready for the next one, go.
Same with planners.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. All of us in this meeting world are used to this go, happen, ends. You boredom, you get ready for the next one, in this flow of in, out, right? We all kind of have this life and it's gone.
Yeah. And it's gone. Yeah. Where's our schedule? Because we're so set to, here's the event back here. And now we go, we work our way back, or we work our way to the event. So we have all these set schedules, and now we're like, okay, now what? Like, we don't know. We don't have an end date. When you go for surgery, you have an end date. Okay, I'm going to be recovering for 2.5 months. There's no end date. We have no, there's a slow process that people are going to start. But how do you schedule stuff? You can't.
Well, it's a shot in the dark, which is frustrating for everybody on this call, I'm sure, and the type of personalities that we have. We need firm answers.
It's hard to plan when you don't know when people can travel. You don't know when people can get on and off of planes. You don't know when the conference center is going to open up again.
Yeah.
But I do think, it does speak to what you spoke about earlier, Shawna, which is just kind of this continuum of engagement, right? Now we're starting to test this world where stuff engages over this longer period of time. It's not a start date, right? It's a group. It's a discussion. And I'm thinking maybe you have speakers come in and they layer on each other, right? And you might, between events, you're still probably going to have your live events, 6 months, 18 months from now or whatever, but you may be layering content over time, right? Not just 1, 2, 3 massive days of content, but a build up, get ready for it. Then you have the content, then you have the back end. And I know some conferences are already experimenting with that, but this may be driven home by this situation.
Yeah, and I love that idea of the pre-promotion. Yeah. And get to know the speakers a little bit, get to know what they're all about, then do the event, and then do that post-promotion, which on a planning side and a marketing side is a great idea.
Yeah.
Overall, because it's more engaging for people that, then I think there'll be more excitement once we get back into those live events. There will definitely be more excitement on going to the event, because then you get to actually maybe ask more poignant questions of the speakers.
Exactly. Yeah, you know them.
That's been my experience as a speaker, is when I know the audience, whether I've engaged with them previously because we're in an industry group together, or when I go beforehand and I get to talk to people and really know them. That's a different experience, right? And then think about, could you blend this all together into like a 1 year? So you take your traditional event that happens once a year. Is there a way you could do build up for 6 months, do your event, then do kind of the wind down growth from the event for 6 months, and then lead that into the start of the next event? You can create a beautiful cycle where people are never disconnected, right? They're always ready for the next event.
Yes.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
It's going to take some thinking and planning and testing to get something that really works, but pre-content, build up event, kind of your big moment, and then follow up, and then lead that into your next build up for the next year.
Right.
Yeah. So what would you, so you've talked about a little bit what you're doing with the convention and visit bureaus, Shawna. What else would you recommend from the speaker side, or what could event planners ask from speakers to get the most out of their upcoming events?
Planners, ask your speakers what their thoughts are and what their ideas are, because we have a lot of speakers with a lot of time on their hands that are looking to serve right now, and would love to, depending on the audience, reach the audience with something really unique or different. So I would actually ask your speakers what they would love to try, maybe that they've never tried. And it's going to be hard, just like it's hard for some event planners to get out of the box. It's going to be hard for some speakers who are used to doing things a certain way, but really challenge them, and challenge all of your suppliers right now. We all have to reinvent. And as I have always said, there is no box. And more so than ever, there is no box anymore.
Yeah.
The box is gone. We
And
have
outside
to
the
build,
box.
we need to build something new and get your speakers involved in that process, and think about how you can showcase them differently as well, in that virtual event, by saying, hey, you know, we're doing things before, during, and after. Do you want to pop in and do 15 minutes with a VIP group? Would you like to do a reading from your new book? Would you, you know, all the types of things that would really help that speaker. If you're asking that speaker to deeply discount or to do something for free, what can you offer in return that would serve your audience and that speaker? And I think that's a beautiful win all the way around for speakers who are willing to see that there's no box anymore.
There is no box anymore, you know, and I love that idea. You know, personally, I'd love to do kind of an intro speech and then the main speech and then another speech. It's more work, more time, but gives you a deeper connection with the audience. So that's something I'd test with them.
Yeah, so do a little, you know, a little coffee chat and then your main speech, and then do something afterward. That gives the speaker more of a continuum,
Right.
where the full thought process can be developed, and the speaker can actually add more value to the participants that way. And it makes the speaker look better too, because they can showcase more of themselves.
Right.
So,
It's just a win-win that you really can't do with a live event, right? You couldn't ask the speaker to fly in 3 times, you know, over a course of a month. But you could have them come in on week 1 and then re-engage week 2 and then come back week 3. And meanwhile, you can give homework, you can give questions, you can let people percolate.
you can have a deep dive for a certain audience that maybe wants to pay a little bit more. That's a fundraiser for the event. I mean, that there's all kinds of things you can do.
It's just a creative world that we're moving into, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to kind of think outside the box. And like you say, it's a world of opportunity if we choose to use it for that. Yeah. So Shawn, I know most of the people that joined us live are longtime friends of yours, but we'll also have people watching it on YouTube and Facebook later. So why don't you tell folks how they can reach out to you, get to know you? Maybe you got some meeting planners that want to check out Spin. Maybe other people are interested in engaging with you for planning how you'll be their next speaker that can do something unusual and different with their group.
Thank you for that. So yes, please check out Spin. Go to Facebook and search for the group called Spin Members Only. And you do have to apply and answer some questions in order to be vetted. Check out the website, spinplanners.com, but there's nothing to join there. There's no dues or anything like that anymore. And then for me personally, as a speaker, a lot of my planner friends still don't think of me as a speaker. So my speaker website is shawnasuckow.com, and I talk to audiences across all industries. About, I would say 50-60% is in hospitality, but there's a growing segment of my market that is all types of industries. And I help them shift their thinking so that they can market differently and actually get their potential buyers to pay attention. So I speak on trends in consumer behavior, marketing, and sales. So.
Fantastic. Folks, if you haven't had a chance to do it yet, go subscribe to the Best in Events channel on YouTube. We love your comments wherever you're watching. If you're picking it up on Facebook, if you're seeing it on LinkedIn, if you're seeing it on YouTube, we want to hear from you. We can tailor, we can bring Shawna back again. Maybe we can talk her into joining us again for another episode. But check it out, folks. I always ask people, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work. Those of you who are paying attention, investing in your future, we really appreciate it. And Shawna, thanks for a great segment with us.
Thank you, Debra. Thank you, Shawn. Appreciate the opportunity to join you today.